Hello and welcome to ETCIO LeaderSpeak. I'm Sneha Jha, editor of ETCIO, and it is with great pleasure that I bring to you this episode of ETCIO LeaderSpeak with Shalini Warrier, Executive Director of Federal Bank. Shalini Warrier has nearly 3 decades of banking experience. Prior to joining Federal Bank in 2015, she had a long-standing stint with Standard Chartered Bank. She handled multiple disciplines there across various geographies that included India, Brunei, Indonesia, Singapore, and UAE. In her role as the Executive Director of Federal Bank, she leads the bank's initiatives designed to enhance customer experience and operational excellence through automation and digitization. Welcome to ETCIO LeaderSpeak.
Thank you very much, Sneha, for having me over. My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's so nice to have you join me today. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Sneha, and I trust all is well with you and the team at ETCIO.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. Belated congratulations on being awarded the FinTech Woman of the Year India at Global FinTech Fest 2024.
Thank you, Sneha. The Global FinTech Festival, as you may well aware, is a marquee event for financial services and the whole BFSI sector. And yes, this award was a reflection, in my view, of the work the bank has done on this entire collaboration with FinTech. So reflection of that. But thank you very much for your wishes.
Shalini ma'am, we've got a lot to talk about today, but let's start out with a big picture overview. Now, banking is a dynamic sector with industry peers who are either early adopters or fast followers. The overall IT spending by India's banking sector in 2024 is estimated at $13.2 billion, according to data from Gartner. Now, when banks make innovation central to their products, services, platforms, and customer experience, it can be replicated by other banks soon enough. So the competitive differentiation is not very enduring. There is also immense pressure to evolve new innovation strategies and tactics constantly. So, as the executive director at Federal Bank, how do you translate the bank's competitive strategies and tactics into operations? How do you organize and operate your bank's business for maximum innovation success?
Thanks, Neha. You're very right. Banking is to a very large extent commoditized, and in India in particular, there's a lot that gets driven through the digital public infrastructure, through NPCI, etc., and all banks participate kind of equally across that. So retaining that competitive advantage on innovation is, I'm sure, at the top of every banker's mind. Talking to Federal Bank specifically, in my view, we are well organized for innovation. And why do I say that? Because first, at an organizational structural level, a few years back, what we really decided was there were a couple of areas of strategic focus for the bank from an innovation perspective. So we said, let's organize ourselves that way. We created something called the Digital Center of Excellence. We carved out the Digital Center of Excellence as a separate unit, independent of business, independent of IT, independent of ops, and peopled it with people who have kind of multi-disciplinary approaches to banking, and not necessarily just traditional bankers. That team has evolved over the last few years and is, to a large extent, the fountainhead for innovation in the bank. More recently, we did two other things. As you know, Federal Bank works extensively with fintechs. So we again carved out the fintech partnership team as a separate independent team that looks at collaboration with fintechs. And more recently, we created an artificial intelligence center of excellence where we brought together bankers, technocrats, operational people, youngsters, all of them together. So the first thing really is, as a structure, we've created enough headroom in the structure to ensure that there are opportunities to continually innovate. But that's kind of necessary, but I don't think that's sufficient. And for us, really, what has been the The focus from an innovation standpoint is bubbling up ideas from the 15,000 large workforce that we have. They're really at the cutting edge of what they see with customers, what they hear from customers, what they see in the market, etc. They're the ones who come and tell us honestly that customers want an Uber-like convenience, an Amazon-like convenience with the safety and security of banking. So to get that stream through, to get that in a more structured manner, we use something called, we have a group called Nayi Soch, and we kind of tell people, just put your ideas in there, we will pick them up and work on them. So when the ideas come, we give it to the digital team, we give it to the business team, and we work on it. A great example of how that has helped us is more recently at the Global FinTech Festival, we launched a product called Smile Pay. This is literally about smile and you kind of make your payment. It's face authentication. We call it the Digi Yatra of payments. If you've used Digi Yatra in airports, this is like the Digi Yatra of payments. The idea for that originated in a town hall meeting in Coimbatore, where a young boy stood up and said, when I go for a morning run, I'm constrained to take my mobile or my wallet along with me because I want to have a coconut water drink after my run. Why should I be constrained with that? And therefore we said, okay, this may be the best authentication methodology because it's really safe and secure. It's something you own. So that's an example of how we've kind of structured ourselves to make sure innovation happens. Having said that, Sneha, as you rightly pointed out, it can be copied, all of these. So you need to be on your toes continuously to find what's the next best innovation. We believe very clearly and we practice digital at the fore, human at the core. So yes, we will do all the digital capabilities, but what cannot be replicated, honestly, is our human relationships. And we enjoy very strong human relationships with our customers. So the combination of digital and human ensures we are at the forefront from a banking innovation perspective, Sneha.
Ma'am, Federal Bank is no longer an old private South-based franchisee. You're spreading your wings across the vast and diverse geographies of India. Now, I'd be interested to know, how do you aim to source, scale, and sustain emerging technology solutions to deliver on some of your immediate priorities under the vectors of growth, profitability, customer experience, and competitive differentiation?
Yes, we are a national player now, far beyond just being a regional or even a South-based bank. We are definitely, and growing branches. Last year, we grew 140 branches. The year before that, 75. We'll continually expand. It goes with our ethos of philosophy of digital at the fore, human at the core. But coming to your core question of, how do we kind of work with technology solutions that are out? The most recent example of what we've done is creating the Center of Excellence for Artificial Intelligence so that that team can work with what is emerging as technology in the artificial intelligence area. So the team is experimenting, for example, with a chatbot for customers. We already have one, but how do we make it more tuned to customer needs? And a chatbot for internal employees who need any queries or clarifications. The team is doing a range of other innovations. We, for example, may be the only bank using artificial intelligence for monitoring our offsite ATMs from a cleanliness perspective, are they? So the core philosophy, therefore, has been that technology is a key service provider for the business. Technology is at the fulcrum of everything that business does. So we've created the technology team in a form and fashion, primarily in-house, but yes, we do use external, created it in a form and fashion where they literally co-work with businesses to identify opportunities. When business has an idea, it's not like business just goes off and kind of, works on that idea. Business gets together with technology, and technology are the ones who suggest what's the better solution for this. That's one aspect of it, the collaboration between business and technology. The second is we've imbibed a philosophy of learn, unlearn, relearn within the organization, Sneha. So what we've said is everybody has to learn what's out there, unlearn, relearn. So we made 8,000 of our people go through a small program on artificial intelligence so that they understand what it is. We work extensively with external partners to learn more about it, whether it's the IBMs and Oracles of the world, or even some of the more, smaller entities who are doing path-breaking work in technology. So we work very closely with them because we do believe that we don't know it all. So we have to learn from external. So that's the second one, which is the whole learn, unlearn, relearn internally as well as with partners. The third is we have absolutely no hesitation in saying that we will pilot many things. Not all of them will be successful, but we've created a culture within the organization to say, don't fear failure. Know what you're getting into, be clear what you're getting into, do a pilot. God forbid it doesn't work for some reason, no holds barred, let's move on to the next thing. But this whole, it's really a culture of saying test, learn, test, learn, test, learn, and roll out. So I think it's a combination of all these. There is no one silver bullet that can answer it. It's a combination of all this that has created an entire ethos and philosophy of saying this bank is well on its journey to attempt and try out many, many solutions for customer needs.
Now, you also mentioned the AI Center of Excellence and how you're leveraging it for monitoring ATMs offsite. How do you see AI enabling the banking sector in India and the federal bank in particular?
Clearly, there's a lot happening in the AI field within banking itself, leave alone the other industries. I think healthcare, tourism, everybody's taking advantage of it. But if I were to confine this to the banking industry and to federal bank in particular, like I said, one, I've said the AI Center of Excellence. The second one is we're working very closely with RBI Innovation Hub. As you know, Sneha, India is probably the only country that I know of where the central bank has actually created something called an innovation hub. So Federal Bank works very, very closely with them. A couple of experiments underway. For example, again in GFF, we launched with RBI Hedge and Digital India, we launched something called Bhashni, which is ability to do chatbots in 14 languages. So we have a chatbot called Fedi. Fedi was very English oriented, but now with Bhashni, you can converse with Fedi in 14 Indian languages, shortly going up to another 10 or 12 more languages. This is literally a tripartite initiative between RBI Innovation Hub, Bhashini, and ourselves. So in my view, the benefits from AI are, I think we've just touched the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to be done. There's a lot more to be worked on. Clearly, customer service will be the first beneficiary, in my view, from anything to do with artificial intelligence. The second will be fraud analytics. Whether it is lending fraud like credit cards or personal loans, but more importantly, the liability kind of frauds that are happening, whether it's the form of identifying potential money mule accounts, identifying potential phishing and other kinds of transactions. So that's fraud analytics is another area which is going to go in great shape. The third is on credit underwriting, because today our entire digital personal loans and credit cards are digitally underwritten. How do we improve those models using machine learning and artificial intelligence? So these three areas stand out. There will be many, many more, I'm sure, that will come from AI, but these three, you can literally see the benefits that will come from them. And those are where a large part of our investment is going in at this point in time.
Nan, you also stated fintech partnerships. So, what are some of the fundamental principles that are required for a successful and responsible bank fintech partnership? And can you also explain how Federal Bank has benefited from its fintech partnerships?
Sure. I'll have to just rewind a little bit to go back to a few years back when the bank had a very detailed strategic review with the board. And we do this every year, but that particular year, we spent quite some time looking at the evolving landscape in BFSI and the role that fintechs were playing. So we went in saying, listen, we could either compete with fintechs, we could collaborate with them, or we could just ignore them. All options are on the table. But after careful evaluation, we were convinced that fintechs play a very integral role in the ecosystem, and for us, collaboration makes sense. Why did we say that? Because first, from a point of view of reach to customers, we do believe and continue to believe that fintechs have a reach to customers which is far beyond what traditional banks like us would have. Not just in terms of number of customers they can reach out to, but also the kind of customers they can reach out to. Federal Bank is very well known for a certain profile of the customer, the more self-employed neighborhood kind of a customer. But fintechs would give us access to the salaried millennial, for example. So that was one reason why we did. The second reason was from a financial perspective, the bank did not have unsecured loans, credit cards, etc., as part of the portfolio. We were just getting into that business. If we had to improve return on assets, if we had to improve net interest margin, these products played an important role. Being late entrants, therefore, we wanted to adopt a collaborative approach with fintechs to reach prospective customers of credit cards, personal loans, microfinance, etc., and improve our return on assets. So a combination of all these laid down the strategy from a fintech standpoint, and that's how we entered into this collaboration with fintechs. The first thing we did actually was to put the technology infra in place. Before we even approached any fintech, we put the technology infra in place and said, let's put an API gateway and make sure we have all the APIs that fintechs need. And that's the start of when we started engaging with fintechs. Today, we have many partnerships that we are proud of, and we continue to onboard partners. Having said that, we do go through a fairly rigorous process before we, onboard a partner. The first is really a meeting of minds. So I personally, for example, spend time with the founders, etc., to make sure there is a meeting of minds. There has to be some commonality of goals. There has to be a understanding of the approach to this collaboration, which is really about a win-win, a collaborative approach. There also has to be a very clear understanding on the fintech side of the regulatory compliance, because that is non-negotiable. So we go through a fairly detailed evaluation process. We actually have a grid, which is an open, transparent grid with the partner. We complete the grid, and every partnership is then put up to recommendation to a group that is headed by our MD and CEO, and is people with the compliance team, the risk team, the operations team, all of them together. And when they say, yes, you can go ahead, is where we start with the partnership. So that evaluation makes sure that, we're going in with a purpose of making this successful. Post that, obviously, we do a lot of due diligences. We do a lot of commercial reviews to understand the dynamics of the partnership. We then get into a technology understanding of how the two technologies can work together, and then the whole process takes over thereafter. Post that also, we have a monthly review with the partner to make sure it's on track. So it's not you launch something and just leave it by itself. We do a monthly review with the partners to ensure we are on track. Whatever course corrections need to be done are done. So it's a very detailed process that we do, which is why I do believe we are at the forefront of fintech partnerships in India amongst the banks, and also why we have a separate department that is kind of devoted to being the interface with fintech. They carry all the goals on fintech. So it's a long answer, but I think at the core of it is collaboration, rigorous selection process, ongoing monitoring, and non-negotiable regulatory compliance.
Absolutely. Now, ma'am, the banking sector in particular and the FSI vertical in general employs a big majority of women in their workforce. However, there aren't too many women in the senior executive positions. What is the reason behind this? In the past, we've seen women leaders like Kalpana Morparia, Shikha Sharma, Naina Lal Kidwai, Shyamala Gopinath, and today we are seeing leaders like Zareen Daruwala, Renu Sood Karnad, Shanti Ekambaram. Union Bank of India has a lady as the CEO, A. Manimekalai. We are seeing your example, and you recently won this award at the Global FinTech Forum. So, what do you think is the reason behind this, and what should banks do to help change this trend?
Thanks, Sneha. First of all, from a federal bank perspective, extremely proud to say that nearly 43% of our workforce are women, 25% of our branches are headed by women, and we've done a lot over the last few years to encourage that. Having said that, as you rightly pointed out, it's very pyramidical, if you call it that way. The top of the pyramid becomes more narrow. And I split this into two parts in my mind. And when I do a lot of work with people, the first part of it is, what is the organization doing to make sure this is, creating a right ethos, philosophy, and atmosphere in which women can think. So from the initiatives that banks like us do, and many banks do it, but I can refer to Federal Bank. One, we have a very, very structured mentoring and coaching program for our women employees. One of the key benefits we have seen over the last few years has been a very, very customized, structured mentoring and coaching program helps women immensely, because they trade their inhibitions they flourish much more in that environment. So we do have structured mentoring and coaching programs. Two, we do make what we call strategic moves where women are put at the forefront of certain jobs. We do that consciously, and we kind of literally encourage and motivate them to take up roles that they may not have taken up in the normal course. The third is to make sure, because we are in the banking industry, there are transfers that are mandatory as per RBI. We ensure that through that process, we take cognizance of the family atmosphere of the lady before we do a transfer. So it's not like an arbitrary one, etc. We go through a process of saying we will meet all the regulatory requirements, but we will balance it with your personal needs. So therefore, the structural help that is available are all these and much more. The second part of it is the individual herself. How do I make sure my kind of women workforce build the self-confidence to put up their hands for the next role, to take that next assignment? And there, I think, is probably the bigger challenge in my view, because this is in the mindset, is in the mind. And that's where we do a lot of interventions on training. We give them networking opportunities. We give them opportunities for, just doing kind of, doing projects outside their domain of expertise and, giving them exposure for that. So building more and more self-confidence and making sure they will help. Particularly for Federal Bank, we do have an emerging lot that is really, we are looking forward. More recently, for example, we appointed our first zonal head in branch banking, who's a lady. The first time we were doing that, and she will flourish and come up with many more senior women waiting in the wings to come up. So unless both the organization and the concerned woman, come together, this is not going to be successful. And I think banks like Federal have done a lot in the last few years to make sure this works. With 43% available, I'm fairly certain the pipeline for the future is much more attractive than what it has been so far.
Those are very concerted and conscious steps you've taken in the right direction. And, ma'am, women represent the dynamic consciousness and creative energy in this world. And what better way to celebrate the spirit of Navratri than to get inspired by one of the most powerful women in the banking sector in India. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for sharing your insights with us. It was a lovely conversation, very inspiring and insightful one. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Sneha. Thank you so much. Very lovely questions that you put together, and we could traversed a lot of area in the last 20 odd minutes. So thank you so much for that, Sneha, and all the best to you. Happy Dasera and happy Diwali in advance too.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your time.